Alright, well, I've cleaned out some of my garage so I can move around a little bit. Over the winter, Rob Schwartz and I took this whole girder front end apart. Had to have that shock absorber made, mounted up these cool lights, bled all the brakes, all that stuff. Did the rear axle bearings. We had to do the brake drum and gear set, new set of brakes, and it was all copacetic. We took it out for its first couple of rides. Man, it was just running mint. But for the second time since I've owned this bike, this motor seized. So we're going to take this thing out today and take it over to American Cycle Fab in Scranton, PA. Why them, you ask? Why would I travel all the way from Massachusetts to Scranton, PA? Because they have developed a flathead motor with 228 rear wheel horse. I told them I don't need all that, but they change up the oiling systems, they change up the specs. They're going to do some work on this to make it rideable, or more rideable than it's ever been. We're going to start the dismantling process this morning, probably by simply draining the fluids. Alright, let's see if I can figure out how to pause this. Alright, we're going to start off this morning. Going to just remove the exhaust first. Well, right after we drain off all the oil. And as I'm checking everything out, I might have to pull that brake pedal off, but there's a lot of clearance here, so I may be able to simply tilt the motor out once I've got everything detached. Got to take off my clutch basket, of course, belt primary, probably the generator, but I think we might be able to just flip that bad boy out and get down to business. It's funny, I've had stuff tucked away for so long. I went down here and said, hey, where's my motorcycle, Jack? What's going on? Oh, I better call my son, see if he borrowed it. No. I put it up on this shelf underneath this junk so you can see how often I've been using it. Now that I've found it, I'm going to pull her out, put her to work. Alright, so as you can see, I've got it up on the lift. Notice the difference between the front end and the rear end? Yes. Front end's still touching the ground, and the rear end is not. Obviously, it'd be difficult to pull off some of this stuff because the jack will be in the way. But we'll get the oil drained, which drains from this plug down here. I have to use a folded up piece of cardboard and some other old school tricks. You'll figure it out. Well, as you can see, I've got my fancy old school oil ramp, basically, to go into my oil sump. Let's see how we do with it. Alright, so we've got a good flow of oil. That oil was 60 weight, brand new AMSOIL. It's tough to think of it all being no good now, but there it is, going into the sump. Yep, nothing like a piece of cardboard to get the job done. Alright, we've successfully drained the oil. Now we're going to start removing these oil lines that connect to the motor. Pretty much everything that connects to the motor we're going to have to disconnect so we can take it out. But since we're here doing the oil, we might as well start with the oil line. Now I know I'm making a video here and I'm doing it for you, but as well as for me, because I need to remember where these oil lines go, where these fancy little attachments are with my tie wraps. This goes up to an oil filter, which was not standard on a 1945 Big Twin Flathead. So I'm going to disconnect that. I may take off this oil filter, and it of course is going to drain oil all over the place. So stay tuned. As you can see, I can't get to this oil line down here because the oil pressure sending unit's in my way. So I'm going to take that off and get off that oil line. Well, I thought you might find this to be a point of interest. This line right here goes to one of the oil pumps. This is your feed line. And you see that there was metal line to metal line. I took out this other return line. This is what the oil return line, and you'll notice it was up to this hose clamp here. But see down below, you can see where the line was cut in order to attach the aftermarket oil filter. So anyway, that's just interesting stuff about that. We took off the breather tube already. So now we move on to the next phase of our operation. Since we're on this side of the bike, I might as well try to take off this exhaust. You see the front exhaust is kind of held on by these two bolts. In a flathead motor, the exhaust simply slides in this port. There's nothing securing it in there, no bolts, no nothing. It just slips in, and so it needs to be held on from a couple of angles. So I'm going to take that one off. I'll take those bolts and connections off, and then we'll slowly and carefully pull the exhaust out. As you can see, I always leave my key in my ignition, that way I can't lose it. But we're going to end up disconnecting this stuff. You see my brake pressure switch is held on by this little spacer and this whole deal. So I got to remember how this goes back together and not lose my ignition.